Today we are looking at Aisha's Care. This is a strand heavy burst pulse rifle. I know, some of you are probably like, what the hell is that? Think Revision 0, but legendary in strand. And we actually have multiple in this archetype that dropped on us with this expansion. One from the raid, which we're going to be talking about here in a few days, and the other one here from Trials of Osiris, and that is Aisha's Care. Now we don't have the adept version, but that's all right. The main thing we wanted to test today was how it performed in PvE and PVP. It's a unique archetype, so let's just start there. Its frame is called a heavy burst frame, and it reads, fires a hard-hitting 2-round burst, slightly reduces flinching from incoming fire while aiming. Now again, the most unique factor here is that it's a 2-round burst pulse rifle. This makes it a 395 round per minute pulse, and we wanted to just make sure that it didn't match that of Revision 0 and its 2-round heavy burst mode. And from a frame-to-frame comparison, yeah, which I know sounds like common sense, but we wanted to check it either way. Now before jumping up and completely disregarding pulse rifles, keep in mind, they got a heavy buff in this sandbox. We're talking 38% more damage against miners, amongst other various buffs against higher health targets. And number 2, this archetype is actually kind of good. Many folks who have done the raid love Nullify. Corrasion, which drops from Echoes, is not dropping yet, but that weapon too is in the same archetype, except it's arc. So Aisha here really doesn't have any competition within its slots outside of Revision. Now in terms of perks, in our third column we have Keep Away, Zim Moment, Slice, Gutshot Straight, Encore, To the Pain, and Under Pressure. For our fourth column perks, we have Hatchling, Kill Clip, Collective Action, Desperado, Golden Tricorn, Head Seeker, and Moving Target. Now as you can see from these perks, this is definitely a weapon more catered towards PvP, which kind of makes sense considering it comes from Trials. That's not to say there's not things in it that you can utilize inside of PvE, but guys, so many people have already written off this weapon inside of PvP, and we loaded up yesterday with it, and we were popping heads, man. And Les literally came into my stream and said the pulse rifle was garbage. In my opinion, I think it's very good, at least from my time playing with it. With that being said though, let's touch on PvE real quick before we jump into PvP. If you want to rock this weapon in PvE, in that third column, I think the only perk you could really utilize is Slice. It reads that casting your class ability allows this weapon to sever targets on hit for a brief duration, up to a maximum number of targets. Now this is going to allow your next 5 hits within 8 seconds of using your class ability to apply sever to targets, which inside of PvE reduces an enemy's outgoing damage by 40%, and inside of PvP, that's 15%. Now as for the enhanced version, which yes, this weapon can be enhanced, even the base form. This allows you to apply sever to your next 5 hits for 9 seconds instead of 8. Now no lie, this is a great perk inside of PvE, as it can be procced quite often, and it allows you to debuff targets, and obviously at level stuff, you're not going to really need this perk. When we're talking like GMs and other content where literally everything can one-shot you, perks like Slice, applying sever from a distance is pretty meta. Outside of Slice though, for PvE players, there's really not a whole lot here. Maybe you can go Gutshot Straight if you want to double up on a damage perk. And again, Gutshot Straight reads that aiming down sights increases body shot damage, but decreases target acquisition. Now this is going to be a 10% increase to body shot damage on pulse rifles, but it gives you that minus 20% to auto aim cone size. Now the enhanced version is a bit better. This helps your auto aim cone size penalty slightly by making it minus 15% instead of minus 20%. But dude, I hate double edge perks. I hate anything that makes my weapon worse, even if there is a substantial buff on the other side. But I'm not a big fan in messing with that target acquisition. For my PvE players, I think Slice is definitely the way to go. Now on to column 4. You have a lot more options. You've got Kill Clip for that 25% damage buff for 5 seconds. The enhanced version is 5.5 seconds. I will say the reload speed on this thing is not that great, as it sits at a 40 base, so you're gonna have to rock things like reload mods. Golden Tricorn is also present here, which gives you that 50% increase in damage for 7 seconds, and then if you score a matching grenade or empowered melee kill while ×1 is active, you go to ×2 for that 50% increase for 10 seconds. Now the enhanced version increases the ×1 timer to 8 seconds. It's a good perk, and for Strand, it's a really easy one to proc. I would say for other abilities, you may have a tougher time. Strand, in my opinion, is one of the easiest ones to proc Golden Tricorn. The only issue Golden Tricorn currently has is that it just doesn't work with Prismatic. For some reason, Prismatic won't give us ×2 when using Strand. It'll work with base Strand, like the Strand subclass itself, or even your other classes. But Prismatic, for some reason, there's some issues with the code, and Golden Tricorn is not activating, at least at ×2. Now we also have Collective Action. This one reads that collecting elemental pickups or throwing a Strand Tango grants a stacking period of increased damage. Elemental pickups includes Fire Sprites, Void Breaches, Stasis Shards, Ionic Traces, and Strand Tangles. Now this is a 20% increase in damage inside of PvE for 7 seconds when interacting with an elemental pickup. pickup, with additional pickups extending that timer to a maximum of 12 seconds. And the enhanced version extends our base timer to 8 seconds instead of 7. Now keep in mind, this doesn't need to be Strand Tangle. It could be any of those pickups. But this season, playing off of Strand Tangles is huge. You've got Elemental Siphon, which reads that rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super creates elemental pickups that matches your equipped super. And this seems to take somewhere around 3 rapid kills to proc, and then it will spawn a Strand Tangle. So you have a way here to directly proc collective action. Unfortunately, Tangles do have a lengthy 12-second cooldown before they can be created again. Now we do have one last perk for PvE that I do want to talk about, and that's Hatchling. Precision final blows or rapidly defeating targets with this weapon spawns a threadling at the target's location. Now this is going to spawn a Hatchling either every precision final blow or after 3 rapid non-precision final blows, with the enhanced version simply giving us a passive +5 handling buff. Now Hatchling is pretty great, especially if you're building into Strand directly. And for me personally, I think that would still be my pick alongside Slice, just to fully lean into Strand on this weapon. Again though, not necessarily something I would recommend if you're not doing a dedicated threadling build, as having those Strand fragments to boost your threadling damage, double proc things like Rebirth, it's those combinations that really take a Hatchling weapon to that next level. Now as for our origin traits, again, these are all definitely more focused on PvP, but they do have some PvE usage. We've got Alacrity, which you gain increased reload, stability, and aim assist, as well as range when you are the last living member of your fire team, or if you're running solo. Now this is +20 range, +20 stability, +50 reload speed, and +10 aim assist. Now do note that this perk did get a nerf. It no longer works in Rumble, which is quite unfortunate. Now we also have one quiet moment, which grants increased reload speed and handling when out of combat. That's +20 handling, +40 reload speed, and a 0.95 times reload duration multiplier. This of course activates when you are out of combat. The last one though, which is the one I think all of us are going to be utilizing, is Amalon Fluid Dynamics. This weapon has increased reload speed and stability for the top half of the magazine. Now this gives us +20 stability and +30 reload speed for that top half of the mag. Then as we approach 50% of the mag capacity, these benefits decrease linearly. This is a very noticeable origin trait inside of PvP, and something that I picked up on immediately. But before we get into PvP, I do want to touch on its performance inside of PvE, considering the big buff that pulse rifles have received. With the launch of the final shape, pulse rifles received a 20% increase in damage against all PvE combatants. Now this excluded Graviton Lance and Revision Zero's heavy burst mode. Then against red bars, pulse rifles received an additional 15% damage buff, which would make them deal 38% more damage against red bar enemies when you account for both of those buffs. Now since this is a new archetype, we don't have a pre and post comparison, but I do want to go over where this sits among our other pulse rifles. Against red bar enemies, Aisha here is dealing 4,203 damage per shot to the body, which is 8,406 per burst, and 6,716 to the head, for a total of 13,432 damage per burst if they were all crits. Now against Carl, those damage values change. But if you take these numbers into account, with a base mag of only 20 shots, this gives us a DPS value of 16,684, with a 1 mag total of 61,180 damage. Now how does this compare to other pulse rifles? We're just clocking all of our damage values from our other archetypes. And again, these are base DPS values, meaning perks do change things quite a bit. But looking at high impact pulse rifles, we're looking at a DPS value of 13,199, with a 1 mag total of 58,077 damage. Aggressive pulse rifles have a DPS value of 12,820, with a 1 mag total of 64,320. Lightweight pulse rifles have a DPS value of 13,362, with a 1 mag total of 70,380. Now keep in mind, of course, when I say 1 mag total, things do fluctuate depending on the weapon and the mag size. Lastly, we have rapid fire pulse rifles, which clocked in at 13,874 DPS, with a 1 mag total here at 52,956. Now the main takeaway for this, guys, and I know we're not necessarily comparing this to kinetic weapons. Yes, kinetic weapons did get a nerf, but that's only against bosses. Everywhere else though, it's still doing more damage to its energy counterparts. With that being said, just comparing apples to apples, archetype to archetype, dude, the DPS on this archetype that Aisha is a part of is pretty damn solid. It surpasses everything else, which is why I'm saying you could definitely use Aisha inside of PvE, despite not having maybe the damage perks that you would get on something like Nullify. Now let me be clear, I think Nullify is still the better PvE weapon, but that's also because it has crazy combinations, and we'll be touching on that in our review here soon. With that being said though, Aisha is still a solid choice inside of PvE, especially as a Strand weapon. We've got anti-barrier pulse rifles this season, you've got Elemental Siphon, you've got Threaded Blast, where shooting those tangles with the Strand weapon creates a larger, more damaging explosion. You can proc Facet of Bravery, which allows your melee final blows to grant you unraveling rounds. So again, still some strong PvE options. With that being said, let's talk PvP. Personally, guys, I have never liked the heavy burst frame or the heavy burst mode of Revision Zero inside of PvP. I like the 4-round burst more. That's just me. I just don't like that weird middle ground between being a pulse rifle and a scout rifle. And that's the thing about these weapons. They have a tremendous amount of range. I mean, you're clocking in with a 100 range roll here on Aisha at nearly 40 meters. That's impressive. Now, this archetype is dealing 42 damage per crit and 24 damage per body. It is a 0.87 time to kill value at 5 crits 1 body, and that's from tier 10 resilience and below. Now, this weapon inside of PvP can roll with Headseeker. Headseeker increases that crit damage to 46 damage per crit. Now, it doesn't change anything TTK wise, but it does allow for more forgiveness. So for instance, from tier 10 to tier 5, you still get the kill in 5 crits 1 body, but from tier 4 and below, it's 4 crits 2 body. Now, the other secondary benefit that you get from Headseeker is that it grants you passively plus 10 aim assist, and the enhanced version of Headseeker gives you plus 5 stability. So little things like this, guys, makes Headseeker, especially on this archetype, feel good. I know it's weird considering it's a 2-round burst versus a 3-round burst, but it felt good enough. I actually tried out a number of different combinations. We had a Zim Moment roll, which made the weapon feel extremely stable, on top of already feeling stable with Amalon Fluid Dynamics. I had a Desperado roll, which with Desperado, you can actually drop the time to kill down to 0.67 seconds. Again, still in 5 crits 1 body, but reloading after a precision final blow increases your rate of fire. And the enhanced version of this allows it to last for 7 seconds. And it's pretty nice. Great in 6v6. I'm not the biggest fan of Desperado in 1v1 scenarios, but when I was utilizing it inside of comp, I liked it, guys. There was moments that I was able to take full advantage of it. Now, there is a new trait that's present on this weapon called To the Pain. While this weapon is equipped, taking damage greatly increases handling and aim assist until the weapon is stowed. Taking more damage increases the effect. Now, this is very similar to Eye of the Storm, as that also gives us increased handling plus increased accuracy. The difference is that Eye of the Storm procs once our shields get below 40, and then it reaches its maximum benefits at 0 shields. Now, To the Pain, it increases and stacks the whole gunfight, pretty much from the moment you start taking damage, or sometimes the second shot you get hit with. Now, each bullet from a primary seems to give 1 stack. Then once your shields break, it looks like I was getting about 2 stacks per shot that I got hit with. Now, it scales based on how much damage something deals you. For instance, a melee would give me ×3. A shotgun that didn't kill me gave me ×6. A sniper rifle body shot gave me ×4. The thing that I haven't been quite able to narrow down on is what is those benefits in terms of handling and aim assist, but it is something that's pretty nice, especially once those stacks get going, with the enhanced version allowing for those stacks to culminate faster. And the beautiful thing about To the Pain is that you don't lose the buff until you stow. So if you come out of a gunfight with ×10, you will still have that increase in handling and that increase in aim assist in your next gunfight. Overall, guys, I was trying out a lot of different roles, sometimes with perk combinations that really didn't make sense, but I found so many of them to perform well. On top of that, it's so easy with the stats here on just the base version to reach damn near max range. So touching upwards of 40 meters is not a hard thing to achieve. And the adept version is going to make this easier. My suggestion is go arrowhead break, high cal, or ricochet rounds in either Zim Moment or even To the Pain alongside Headseeker, Desperado, moving target, or kill clip. And I know normally we narrow down on a singular god roll, but there's just so many things that are good on this thing. And I feel at base, Aisha's care is actually a lot better than what people are giving it credit for. Just having Amalon Fluid Dynamics procced with no stability traits kicks up the stability here to 67. You include the handling buff from arrowhead break, a flinch from high cal rounds, and a ranged masterwork, you're already touching 95 range. Combine that with the likes of Zim Moment and maybe Headseeker or Zim Moment moving targets. Fellas, enhance those perks, you will be cooking with this weapon. There were so many times in dueling situations where I came out on top. And granted, the map definitely helps. Like having a map that stretches out the range, putting you in that mid to long range definitely benefits this weapon. But if you can maintain that range, there are not too many weapons that are going to compete against you. I think the biggest danger to this pulse rifle is actually other pulse rifles. Most notably, high impacts. A God Roll Messenger still has a 0.67 time to kill value. It's still incredibly dangerous, and with that right roll, it can easily 2-burst you. Red Death is also within that archetype, but the rapid fire nature of this 395 round per minute pulse rifle has that potential to compete despite having that worse time to kill value. Again, treat it like a scout rifle, but bring it into those gunfights that's in that high mid-range level. Those are the waters where a lot of weapons start to experience damage fall off, and that's where Aisha's care is going to take full advantage. advantage. So guys, that is our review here for this weapon. Again, everything about this gun can be enhanced. It's one of the beautiful updates that Bungie has added. I love that it's an Amalon weapon, and I think there's multiple roles for both PvE and PvP that will satisfy you. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.